geliyor. Ay Ahmet ev geliyor. Ev geliyor. Ev geliyor. Allah'ım. Allah. Allah. Allah yardım et. Allah yardım et. Allah yardım et.
Rome, a powerful autumn storm hit the Italian capital late on Sunday evening, bringing torrential rain, violent winds and lightning that left several neighborhoods in the darkness. Streets turned into raging rivers and the Tiber overflowing in low-lying area, leaving cars submerged and paralyzing public transport. Emergency service reported to receive more than 800 calls in a few hours, with firefighters rescuing dozens of people trapped in the vehicles and underground garage. "We haven't seen intensify in the years," said Luca Bianchi in Rome firefighters. The rain was falling fast, so seven simply couldn't cope. The iconic Colosseum neighborhoods and Via del Corso were heavily flooded, forcing tourism to seek shelters in a bus and subway station. Several subway lines were temporarily closed, and flights and Flamenco airports were delayed indefinitely due to lightning and strong crosswinds. Meteorologists from Italy's Civil Protection Department saved from the storm and followed by warm Mediterranean air cold in with a cold front from the northern Europe, creating explosive weather conditions. In some area, rainfall exceeded 3.5 inches in less than 2 hours.
Putain!
Events like this are increasingly frequent and intense due to climate change, warning the Dr. Giuseppe Marino, climatologist of the University of Rome. Historic sites were not spared. Pisa, Navona, and Campo de Flori was underwater. Fire protective measures were quickly deployed at the Colosseum and Roman Forum to prevent damage to existing structure. Nearby tourists sought shelters under the coffee means of the lighting up the stormy sky. Power outage affected thousands of homes, and local authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel. Schools in the most affected districts were closed for the remainder of the day. Insurance companies have already begun assistance to extensive property damage, with a preliminary estimate to reach millions of euros. Rome Major Roberto Gualtieri praised the rapid response of emergency crews and emphasizing civil vulnerability and increasingly extreme weather. "We must strengthen our infrastructure and preparedness," he said, as the storm subsided. Local emergency to assess the damage swept debris for the streets and helped stranded vehicles. Despite the chaos, Romans remain resilient. Rome has seen centuries of storm, said Mourning County, a residence when during were rebuilt and life goes on. Palermo, Italy. A powerful storm swept through the Sicilian capital overnight, unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and lifting parts and plunged parts of the city into chaos. The downpour, which began late Sunday, lasted several hours of flooded major roads, homes, and businesses across Palermo and nearly town. According to the Italy Civil Protection Agency, over 19 millimeters of rain fell in 2 hours, one of the hardest rainfall recorded in recent years. The city and the drainage system was quickly overwhelmed, tuning main arteries with the Valley region, Sicily, and the fast-flowing rivers. Cars were seen drifting through the streets and emergency crews raising their rescue standing drivers. It was like a water flow pouring from the sky, said resident Giovanni Bianchi. Those ground flood apartment was submerged. "I lived these 40 years and never seen a rain like this." Authority reported dozens of emergency interests from the clearing fallen trees and rescue elderly residents trapped flooded buildings. Several neighboring, including Sierra Monteta and Partinico, suffered blackouts after lightning strikes damaged power lines. Rome faced an unexpected and ferocious hailstorm yesterday, transforming the historic streets and the eternal city into the winter-like scene in the middle of autumn. Within the minutes, hailstorm is large as walnuts pelted rooftops, cars and accident-capable stones caused widespread damage. Residents were caught off guard. It was like a wall of ice come from the sky, said Marco Ricci, who was walking near the Pisa Tower. The hail smashed car windows and bounced the sidewalk. We can reach the cover. Tourists and local alike scrambled to find shelters, and streets quickly flooded in ice water. Emergency services were overwhelmed. Firefighters and civil protection teams responded to hundreds of calls involving fallen trees, blocked roads and stranded vehicles. In the Trastevere district, metro station and houses were temporarily submerged and buses were forced to reroute. Meteorologists described the storm of sudden and extreme caused by the Mediterranean low-pressure system interacted with a warm, humid air from Africa. This condition can produce very violent storm in a short time, said climatologist Via Roma. Sicily have been struck by a powerful and sudden storm, leaving widespread damage, flooded streets and stranded residents in its wake. Torrential rain, strong winds exceeded 100 km/h and have plummeted cities from Palermo to Catania, turned roads into rivers, and causing chaos in towns across the island. Residents reported being caught off guard by the intensity of the storm. "I never seen a rain came down like this in my life," said Maria Russo, a Palermo resident. "With the wind ripped off our shoulders and the streets filled with water within minutes." Emergency services were inundated with the calls, responded to fallen trees, blocked roads and damaged vehicles. Several small rivers in Catania and Messina overflowed, forcing evacuation in low-lying neighborhoods. Schools and public offices were closed, and local airports experienced flight cancellation due to heavy rainfall and poor visibility. Historic cities were also affected. In Palermo, parts of the old city's favorite minor flooded, while the Calendar and Trappa Massima saw water slipping into Contiat. Venice, the city of water, was forced yet another violent test of survival. The powerful storm system swept across northern Italy this week, striking Venice with a torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and dramatic flooding that would reinforce over the city's long-term future. Overnight, thunder echoed across the lagoon with wind gusts tapping 110 km/h, battering the ancient city. The down water level had stretched to 115 centimeters, high enough to submerge much of St. Mark Square and spill into historic buildings. "It was a chaos," said resident Marco de Alisa. "The wind was howling and the water was everywhere. We couldn't ever open our door." Authority activated the most flood barrier system, the multi-billion-euro defense designed to protect Venice from high tides. But even this was engineering marvel struggling to contain the ferocity of the storm. Engineers confirmed that several guests shattered minor malfunction, allowing water to seep into vulnerable zone. Local businesses are counting heavy losers. Coffee, art, galleries, and luxury hotels along the Grand Canal were flooded with the hour. A powerful hailstorm swept across Rome late Wednesday afternoon, turning the city into a frozen battlefield as a hailstorm large of a golf ball pounded through its cars and rooftops. The storm struck without warning, sending residents and tourists scrambling to cover with the cafes, shops and under a warning. Central districts including Trastevere, Pisa Venezia and Termini were hardest hit. Flooded streets, trapped vehicles and emergency service responded to over 500 calls to stranded motorists, fallen trees and damaged buildings. It was like the city was under siege, said Luca Romano, a resident in Trastevere. He smashed car window and the water rose too quickly to escape. The Well de Foucault. Italian Fire and Rescue Service worked throughout the night, clearing debris and rescue people from the floodwaters. Several metro stations, including Barberini, were temporarily closed. A water entire tunnels, authority confirmed minor injury to residents by hail and slippery ice pavement. Meteorologists explained the storm was caused by the collision of hot, humid Mediterranean air with a cold front from the north, powering the supercell system capable to releasing enormous energy in a short time. These storms are increasingly violent and unpredictable. Agriculture is surrounding lasers suffered heavily. Vineyard, olive groves and citrus orange were devastated within minutes, leading the preliminary estimates of millions of euro in losses. In the Ostia, a coastal suburbs of Rome, wake up to 2-meter high crashed onto safe road, damaged several beach establishments that had already been waked by previous storm. Climatologist Dr. Alexandra Conte and La Supercella University noted that the storm reflects one alert trend. Italy is experiencing increasingly severe weather conditions due to climate instability, she said. Warmers say the more humid air contributed the storm that used to occur once a decade but now happen every few months. Exhausted residents took the streets and saw mud-broken glass and broken branches scattered across once bustling boulevard. Cleanup crews walked tirelessly as the city slowly returned to life, but memories of the storm lingered. Rome is strong, said a resident near the Pentagon as she washed water from the duster, but the nature reminds who was both. This is a classic Mediterranean instability event, explained Dr. Elisa Conte from Italy's National Weather Service. The atmosphere were loaded in energy, and when it broke, the rainfall was explosive. A severe hailstorm swept across the northern Italy, battered cities from Milan to Bologna, with the ice stones the size of a tennis ball and leaving a trail of destruction across the region. The storm, which broke out late on Wednesday evening, turned streets into rivers and the ice and causing chaos in that meteorologists describe it as one of the most severe hailstorms in the Italy recent history. Residents of Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna described scenes of panic and thunder rumble overhead and a huge hailstorm pounded roofed cars and crops. It felt like the sky was fallen, said Franessa Rossi, a resident of Parma. The noise was different. We throughout the window would explode. Local authority reported hundreds of emergency calls. Firefighters worked through the night and rescued stranded motorists to clear fallen trees. In Bergamo, entire neighborhoods were left without power and strong winds and ice built up damaged power lines.
Oggi desio come se regno l'alto forno.
Italy. This week violent hailstorm struck parts of the northern and central Italy, unleashed golf ball-sized ice and town of transformed roads, vineyards and city squares into frozen rivers. Described by Meteorologists as one of the most intense storms in the recent years, the disaster caused widespread damage to homes, vehicles and agriculture, leaving residents stranded it is said in fury. The hardest hit region were Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna and Tuscany. In Bologna, hail shattered windows and damaged roofs. In Milan, a wide streets of ice-covered streets completely paralyzing traffic. Sudden flooding added the chaos, flooding emergency service with the hundreds of rescue requests. Carlo Benedetti, a resident of Madeira, said it was terrified when in minutes the sky turned pitch black and the thousand near rooms of ice were crashing down. The hailstorms with such force they shattered titles and dented cars' bodies on the streets. According to Meteorological from the Italy Civil Protection Department, the storm was triggered by the violent collision between warm air from the Mediterranean and a cold front moving from the Central Europe. Local farmers in the Lazio region reported severe damage on a vineyard and olive grove territory accompanied harvest season. Social media flooded with the shocking footage and hail pelting on around Colosseum and Treaty Foundation with the thunder echoing across the sky. Many Romans tragically to hide in their astonishment. It's like the end of the world, said Maria, a shop owner in the Trastevere district. The street turned completely white in an instant. I've never seen anything like that. Experts warn that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent as the climate patterns in southern Europe shift. We are witnessing the Mediterranean region transformed into a source of violent storm, stated climatologist Via Roma. As snow removal crews cleared the ice debris, Rome felt that the aftermath of extreme weather damage and stark reminder of the event of Etna city is not immune to natural fury.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso.
Hospitals reported on the sharp increase in importance of the bureaus and the minor factories. Businesses, especially cafes and open-air markets, suffered significant losses of the sudden flood destroyed supplies to outdoor sitting areas. Farmers to the outskirts and the city also serious losses and a vineyard and olive groves were destroyed by the storm. Video quickly spread on social media showed hailstorm bouncing off incident capable of the flooding landmarks such as the Colosseum, shocking viewers around the world. Tourists caught on the storm described the experiences as apocalyptic. Climate experts warned that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent in Italy, pointing out the former warmer seas contributed to the strong storm. As a cleanup efforts continue, Rome is styling the financial damage and reflection to the capital vulnerability to sudden climate shock. Rome was left stranded after extraordinary hailstorm turned in the Etna city into the local described the sudden winter in September. Streets across the capital, including area near the Colosseum and a piece of Venice, were blanketed a thick layer of ice, disrupting traffic and caused widespread astonishment. The violent storm struck with a little warning, planted the city with a hailstone the size of a walnut. Within minutes, the rain were overwhelmed, leaving the flash flood in low-lying districts. Motorists were forced to abandon cars and ice storm swept through the several avenues, while public buses struggled to navigate blocked roads. Emergency service reported dozens of calls to assistance. Firefighters were deployed to clear fallen branches and rescue drivers trapped flooded in underpasses. No fatalities were confirmed, but several minor injuries occurred as people slipped on the ice-coated pavement. One resident told local media, "I lived in Rome 40 years. I never seen hail like this. I felt that the city had been dropped into another season." Meteorologists explained that the year was triggered by a clash of warm Mediterranean air with a powerful cold front from the northern Europe, creating ideal conditions from the hail formations. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. "We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy." The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus groves, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, where flooded and agriculture groups warn of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half a month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked in disaster to the Medicane and Mediterranean cyclones similar to the Triton storm. Since when the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and a violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged barrier, Rosa County said, "Sicily is used to the hardship, but this something else. We cannot fight this alone."
Dove andare? A sinistra o a destra? Va, dai, veloce.
Rome was hit by unexpected and several hailstones that covered historic capital with a layer of ice, creating several scenes to resemble weather rather than early autumn. The sudden storm swept through the city on Tuesday afternoon, disrupted traffic, flooding subway station and forcing prediction to seek shelter. Local authorities reported that hailstones, some the size of a golf ball, fell in nearly 20 minutes, covering squares, roads and even areas around the Colosseum. Emergency crew were disrupted to clear broken drains after torrential rain mixing with the ice caused flash flooding in several low-lying areas. Public transport was severely affected, with the several metro lines temporarily suspended due to water ingress. Drivers described terrified moments where the visibility dropped to almost zero. It was like a sky was falling, and the hail bending to so loudly, and the roof in the car was where could hit each other, said the city resident Marco Rossi. Businesses in the city center rushed to protect their shop windows, while cafes and restaurants along the Via del Corso lost their outdoor sitting areas, which were destroyed with the hail. Social media quickly filled with the images of Rome cobbled streets turned into rivers and ice, caused astonishment around the world. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused of the sudden collision to warm Mediterranean air with a cold front and swept through the central Italy, an increasingly common pattern associated with the climate instability. Experts warned that such intense hailstorms are becoming more frequent in southern Europe. Despite the chaos, no serious injuries were reported, although dozens of people were treated in hospital to minor cars and businesses. The mayor of Rome urged residents to remain cautious, emphasizing the city's vulnerability to extreme weather events. For many Romans, the storm was stark reminder for the power of nature and the need to better preparedness in the era-changing climate realities. storm was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a cobbled streets into the city rivers and shocking residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. Within minutes, major thoroughfares such as Via del Corso were covered in ice, bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, white ships were shattered, and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment, stones from the sky, said Marco DeSantis, who took shelters in the cafe where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded, and tram service were suspended. At Fiumicino Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered the slush and ground stamped roads to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Colosseum and pelted its antient area to layers into ice-accumulated steps to Spanish stamps and Pisa, Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites, fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slipped on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods, inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Testorial and Toscana. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually large hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy. Sicily, Italy's largest island, has been hit one of the strongest storms in recent times. One of the night of June 27, several weather warnings brought more than 180 millimeters of rainfall in just 20 hours, more than the region usually received in entire month. This was hit area where Palermo, Catania, Angindra, and Messina were the hardest hit. Authorities confirmed that at least 3 people died as a result of the flooding electrocutions. Among the victims was a 45-year-old man from the town of Biancivaga, who was trapped in this car where sudden flood inundated in low light unprecedented. In Palermo, emergency service responded more than 14 calls in one night. More than 120 homes were reportedly flooded in historic districts of Calza and Palermo. In the town of Agerne and Mount Etna, landslides to the evacuation more than 17 residents, while the rescue of fallen trees injured several persons. Power outage affected nearly 30,000 homes. An emergency company, Aeneas, sent dozens of repair crews on the island. Rain severe between Catania and Syracuse was suspended, and yet Falcon Belen Airport, 15 flights were delayed or diverted due to heavy rain and a wind gust exceeded 19 km/h. The magnitude of events Sicily finds itself if those in unprecedented storm is nature unleashed any fear upon the picturesque Italian island. We burst of the exclusive coverage of meteorological spectacle deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering hilding the tempest to unparalleled proportions. Coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains, leading to widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. Our on the ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels served submerged cars and tested to silence the floodedness. The historic architecture stood the test time to the faces of relentless onslaught of the wind of rain. Throughout the island communities are grappling with the power outage, and the storm force caused significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm. Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the brunt of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the relentless rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural area alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggling to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes, and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas.